Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa baraka wa sallama tasliman kathiran ila yawmiddin amma ba'd. So in this series on the Hikam we look at number 211, which is on page 206 here. Ibn Ata'illah rahimahullah, he says, لا تنفعه طاعتك ولا تضره معصيتك وإنما أمرك بهذه وَنَهَاكَ عَنْ هَذِهِ لِمَا يَعُودُ عَلَيْكَ. It's very interesting. It's a very simple idea. لَا تَنْفَعُهُ طَاعَتُكَ وَلَا تَضُرُّهُ مَعْصِيَتُكَ وَإِنَّمَا أَمَرَكَ بِهَذِهِ وَنَهَاكَ عَنْ هَذِهِ لِمَا يَعُودُ إِلَيْكَ وَلَا لِمَا يَعُودُ عَلَيْكَ rather. Your obedience does not benefit him, Allah. Your obedience does not benefit him. And your disobedience does not harm him. This is a very important discussion because a lot of detractors from the faith, people who get confusions about their faith, or people who lose any faith, it's like, why does God need our worship for? Like, He needs our worship. This is very clear. Ibn Ata'illah is saying that really God does not need our worship. He's independent. It is only for your own good that He commanded you the one, meaning the obedience, and prohibited you the other one. That's your manual of life. If people just see the commands of Allah as a manual of life, do this, don't do this. When you get a product, it says, do not immerse in water, right? Do not, if it's an electronic product, it says, do not use like certain household cleaners on it. Just damp cloth, right? Make sure you look after it, make sure you keep the battery charged. It's just a manual of life. Why take it beyond that? When you want to hack your life in a way that you want to make it different, then you'll run into trouble and problems. So you're not allowed to hack your life like that, in that sense. So this is what Ibn Ajiba now says on that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only essential reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent of everything. And everything is dependent on Him. So, anybody who does any obedience isn't giving him anything. He's the same as he was before he created any human being. Before he created you and I, or any human being, including Adam alayhi salam, he was the absolute same. After he created us, he did not enhance in any way. He didn't become upgraded any way. He didn't become better in any way. He's the absolute same. From what he was to what he is, and that's exactly how he's going to stay. There's going to be no enhancement because he is already all perfect. So that's why he's saying that no obedience from any obedient person is going to benefit him. He doesn't need validation, basically. When we do something good, we like validation. It makes us feel good. It reassures us. Some level that's even good. It reassures us. وَلَا تَضُرُّهُ مَعْصِيَةُ الْعَاصِينَ. Anybody who disobeys him, that's not going to harm him, it's going to harm them. See, what some of the scholars say is that when a person does disobedience, they're actually harming themselves. They're doing dhulm on themselves. Now, rationally speaking, it feels so far-fetched that a person would oppress themselves. Why would somebody trouble themselves? It's rationally possible to understand that somebody will harm someone else. That's easier to understand. Like, why are you corrupting yourself? Why are you harming yourself? Why would you do that for? So then the reason why people do that is because they don't look at the future. They don't look at the consequences. They look at the immediate pleasure. That if I take this drug right now, I'm going to get this feeling of high. It's going to give me this trip that I need. Even though they know the next day it's going to be a problem. Even though they know it's an issue. But you're looking at just that in the mind. It's very psychological. You've trained the mind to look for that. So that's what it gets from. Now, if you don't get that, the mind wants it because you've been given it that same thing over and over again. So that's why logically it's so surprising that somebody would harm themselves. But then when you look at our weakness, we understand it's very easy to harm yourself. without realizing we're harming ourselves, especially when it's a sin that you can't see the harms of it right now. In drugs, you can see the harm straight away. But where you're doing zina, you don't see the harm, you just see pleasure. But that's the danger. It's that pleasure that you're looking at right there and there. What you're looking at is haram. What you're touching is haram. What you're committing is haram. There's a pleasure there that's intoxicating us and making us forget what's behind it. That doesn't harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all. It only harms us. That's why we're told not to do this. That's why Ibn Ata'illah himself says in another place, something very interesting. He says, Ilahi, تقدس رضاك أن تكون له علة منك فكيف تكون له علة مني. You're too high, you're too glorified, you're too pure, that there is any defect that comes from you that affects you. So if there can't be any defect like that, then how can you have any defect that would come to you from me? Nothing that I would do will ever harm you in any way. أنت الغني بذاتك. You are independent, intrinsically speaking, by yourself. By your very essence, you are independent. أن يصل إليك النفع منك. That any benefit will come to you. فكيف لا تكون غنيا عني. So how can you not be independent from me? If you don't need anything to happen to you from yourself, you don't need to give your own self anything. You are what you are. You are as great as you are. You don't need anything from yourself. Why would you need anything from me who's so weak? So, servants of Allah, He doesn't benefit from our worship. He doesn't benefit. It's purely for our sake. It's purely for the sake of the world. It's for order, it's for personal discipline, and it's to maintain an ethos among people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He declares openly in the Quran, وَهُوَ الْقَاهِرُ فَوْقَ عِبَادِهِ. Qahir. The Fatimids, when they conquered the Muslim communities of Egypt, which was basically under the Abbasid rule at that time, there was no Cairo at that time. There were some settlements called the Fustat, Qata'i and Askar. These were small areas. There was no Cairo. It was close by, but now Cairo is the whole thing. There were pyramids, and then there were these small communities after Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu had conquered it, had opened it. So he established the Fustat area, which was where he put his tent, and then the masjid, and then that area became known as the tent city. And then after that you had under the Umayyads and the Abbasids. But then after that, the Ahmad ibn Tulun, the Tulunid dynasty, ruled it for a while. Kind of took it away from direct rule of the Abbasid, then the Abbasids got it back. Then comes in the Fatimids. Now these were Shi'i, Ismaili Shi'i. They were ruling in northern Africa, and they came across and they took Egypt. Because there was problems under the governors of the Abbasids in Egypt, they literally walked in because people didn't have a problem. They were tired of what's going on there, so they just walked in and took it all over. And they committed huge massacres. Then they started a new city. That was called Qahira. They're the ones who established the Azhar University. So Qahira is from Qahar, Qahir, Qahr, which means to vanquish, to overcome, to dominate. So it's the city that dominates. And it's truly an amazing city. Unfortunately, it's got issues there, but it's truly an amazing city. It's got 1,000 minarets. Anyway, they didn't last that long. They built quite a bit there, but then they were overtaken by the Ayyubids. And then the Ayyubids were overcome by the Mamluks. And then the Mamluks were overcome by the Circassian Mamluks. And then they were overcome by the Ottomans. And then they were overcome by Muhammad Ali Pasha. Was he from your area? Okay. So anyway, that's a long history of Egypt. That's why when you go to Egypt, you will see, I know we're talking about something else here, but there's 1,000 minarets in Cairo. 1,000 minarets. It says Alf Manara. There's literally masjids next to one another. Because all these great leaders from the Mamluks and all that, they all left their mark. So when you go there, you see the huge masjid of Ibn Tulun. You see the huge masjid of Amr ibn As. You see the huge masjid of the Fatimids, like several. Then you see the masjids of the Ayyubids. Then you see masjids of the Mamluks. And so on and so on and so forth. Right? So, Qahira. Allah is the Qahhar. وَهُوَ الْقَاهِرُ فَوْقَ عِبَادِهِ. Allah is the one who is dominant over all of His servants. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why has He told us to worship Him? So that you can get close to Him. He can make you close to Him. That's why Allah says, Inna rahmatallahi qareebum min al-muhsinin. Allah's mercy, indeed Allah's mercy is close to those who do good. So Allah wants to give us mercy. He just wants us to give Him the excuse by doing good, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Allah is Rahim and He's Rahman. Right? He's Rahman and Rahim. He wants to manifest those names. He wants to implement the benefits of those names to people. He's just looking for an excuse. You do ihsan, you do good deeds, the rahmah will come to you. Allah's mercy is just outpouring. It's everywhere, it's available. You just need to do good to take it. It's us, we're not taking it. Allah is Rahman and Rahim. He makes us repeat it tens of times a day in every prayer. He makes us repeat it when we're about to start something. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, to remember Allah like that. He's telling us, open up yourself, I'll give you the rahmah. So, inna rahmatallahi qareebum min al-muhsinin. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then prohibits you from ma'asi, is because when you do a disobedience, you're literally saying to Allah that I want to be far from you. When we do a disobedience, like saying that we don't want your mercy, we want to be further from you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to remember, has not ordered us to do anything, right, except that there's a benefit in there for making us closer, or it's to do with some etiquette for us being closer to Him. It may not get us close, but it may be the etiquette of being close to Him. And everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from, it's to either, it is something, if we do, it will actually distance us from Him, or it's going to lead to distancing from Him. That's why every disobedience comes into those realms. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end of the day, He says in the Quran, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. He is not to be questioned about whatever He does. It's almost like, throughout history, you've got the dominant ruling party, dynasty, kingdom, or whatever. And you're always going to get a small group of people that are detractors. They don't like it. Doesn't matter how good it is. There's going to be detractors. You had that in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You had that in the prophetic khilafah, right? Under Abu Bakr radiallahu an, Siddiq radiallahu an, Umar radiallahu an. You're always going to have that as human beings. You could run something perfectly, but there's always going to be somebody who dislikes it. Always. But if the main system is doing well and these detractors are small, it makes no difference. They're just barking. Nothing happens. So the idea is that Allah does as He wishes. There's nobody that's going to get stronger. At least when it comes to kingdoms in the world, they get overthrown. Sometimes those small groups do become rebels. They become successful. Right? And sometimes they become the leaders. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's just not going to happen. So, I was speaking to somebody. This is the way shaitan comes with these ideas. He's born a Muslim and everything. He's saying, I've stopped kind of getting a belief in the Quran, like, is it from Allah or not? Now, I understand the Quran is supposed to be inimitable, he says. It's supposed to be a mu'jiza, it's supposed to be unchallenged. But what about, I go, yes, so nobody's been able to challenge it until now. So he says, yeah, but what about if it happens in the future? Look at where the shaitan comes from. What happens if somebody produces something like it in the future? Hard chance, to be honest, because the best of the speakers have already gone. The best of the Arabic linguists, they've gone. Right? Today they're struggling to even understand that. So if this not happened in over 1400 years, then yes, in your realm of possibilities, in the realm of normal possibilities, you might say that, but that's a delusion. Because 1400 years, so then I told him, like, just from his perspective, I said, well, why don't you believe now? And if something like that happens, we'll deal with it then. But to stop yourself believing now because something, that's proper agnostics. It's a very lazy attitude. It's like just an excuse not to believe that. What happens if so? Right? Then you can say a lot of things. So can you see how absurd that idea is, that it sounds now that you put it like that, but it's not absurd to the person when they don't think of it like that. That's why humans can be really easily deceived. It's very easy to deceive human beings because you just give a different spin. That's how you get Brexits, right? That's how you get regime changes. You just need to give spins. You need to hear it enough. It needs to be all around you and you start believing, that most people do not think for themselves. So لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. So you have to remember لا يزيد في عزه إقبال من أقبل عليه. There is no increase at all in His glory and His majesty by anybody who even turns to Him. You know why? Because His majesty is eternal. It's fixed. It's eternal. There's no way that it can change in any way. We're just a blip. In the whole history, we're just a blip. And we suddenly start becoming those few agitators as though we're going to do something about it. That's why in a hadith, there's a hadith, famous one, you've probably heard it. It's related to this. لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أتقى قلب رجل واحد. What a depiction the Prophet ﷺ provides, right? If from your first to your last, from Adam alayhi salam to the last, your insan and your jinn, your humans and your jinn, everybody put together were essentially upon the heart of just on the most, basically if everybody had the same taqwa as the person with the greatest taqwa, right? That would ما زاد ذلك في ملكي شيئا. This is a hadith Qudsi. That would not increase my dominion in the least. So if everybody was a wali of Allah, it would not make my kingdom any better, any superior. Yes, your kingdom would be better, but my kingdom, it won't make any difference to me. ولو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أفجر قلب رجل واحد ما نقص ذلك من ملكي شيئا. On the other hand, if everybody was, hypothetical obviously, was basically according to the heart of the worst transgressor, that wouldn't harm my kingdom in any way. My kingdom is my kingdom. Imam Muslim has related this. That's why one of his names is the Quddus, the Holy One. What does holy mean? Sanctified and purified. No blemish, no problem. It's just completely sanctified and holy, as pure as you can get. That's why some say that its meaning is أنه منزه عن كل كمال لا يليق بذاته. Its meaning is that He is purified of every perfection that is not befitting Him. Every perfection which is not befitting Him. Perfection from our perspective. ولا يقال إنه منزه عن النقائص. They've got adab. They say that, don't say that Allah is free of defects. Say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a different way to speak. It says that Allah is free of every perfection which is not befitting Him. It's too low to say Allah is free of defects. Don't even use the word defect because it's just so far from there. Everything that you think is perfection for anybody around you that is not befitting Him, Allah is free of that. Don't go down below that. Ajib. These are people with adab. They come up with these ideas. Allah gives them that inspiration and they come up with these ideas to have more adab, and they get rewarded for that, because with Allah, He, subhanallah, He will give you reward for every small bit of adab you show, because our religion, our faith is a religion of adab and faith. Allah, He sees every little bit of adab, every little bit of etiquette that we show Him, and He gives us for it. Any adab we show to anything related to Allah, like the Quran, like scholars, like masjid, and so on, Allah will see it. And that the benefit He will give you is not just in you, but in your progeny. Would anybody say the Sultan is not a butcher? No, sorry, that's he can be a butcher in the wrong sense. In saying the Sultan's not a carpenter. it's too low for you to say, because in those days the vocations were all fixed, like, the carpenter was a lowly, maybe. He's not a toilet cleaner. You use a higher reference point. You don't use low reference points for that. You see, some of the ulama, they were reduced to saying, لو أراد الخلق تنزيه الخالق إلا بلسان العجز ما استطاعوا. There is, human beings, when they want to show how great Allah is and how perfect He is, they can't do so except with inability. Like, they just don't know. There's not enough. It's like أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. You are as though you are the same as you've praised yourself. I can't muster up enough praise and words and whatever to say that. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, in his dua, he said, لا أحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. Right? I cannot bring together, I cannot encompass the praise upon you. Like, there's just so much of it, I could do all my life and then not be able to do it. أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. You are as you've praised yourself. Okay, so let's stop here. We need to pray as well for Isha.